Welcome to this program on e-moderation, the 5-stage model. We will talk about the Professor Gilly Salmon's model. There are many models available today to facilitate e-moderators or tutors or whatever name you would call them as facilitators to facilitate online learning. What we are going to talk about, the context of online learning and how e-moderators could facilitate for effective students learning online. Online, as you know, is a web-based learning, and varieties of models of online learning are available today. And whatever models you follow, whatever online e-learning design that you might follow, you might even follow a blended learning strategy, a fully online learning strategy, and whatever models that you follow, by models, what I mean is that there could be pedagogic, technological and content combinations which as a teacher you would like to decide that how your topic has to be positioned and has to be presented online. It could be a totally 3D immersive online environment with the help of Second Life or development of Second Life with the help of software called the Beta, or it could be a simple online learning context, or it could be a proprietary platform which has complex activities involved, or it could be a simple open source like Moodle, for instance, which is widely used internationally. Whatever the platform could be, whatever your subject area could be, what we are going to discuss is that as an e-facilitator, how we as teachers, online tutors would be able to facilitate students learning online such that they would learn more effectively. There are many models available, as I said, but one model which is internationally used and very extensively used internationally, especially in business houses, in training context and so on and so forth, is Professor Gilly Salmon's model. Professor Gilly Salmon, she was a professor of e-learning and learning technologies at the University of Leicester in United Kingdom. Basically, she talked about in the model how interactions should take place and how participation should take place. Participation among students and participation between students and the e-moderator. An e-tutor could equally act as an e-moderator. It is good that an e-tutor acts as an e-moderator, because we cannot distinguish between these two roles. Somebody who would be teaching online and somebody who is facilitating students learning. If these roles can be combined together and that person called e-tutor or e-facilitator or e-teacher could also undertake from time to time formative and summative evaluation. So, all the three roles could be joined together by one person and it will be more effective and it will be easy to handle. So, basically the model that we will be talking about is the 5-stage model from stage 1 to stage 5 in an hierarchical order. This is a scaffolding model. Scaffolding is an hand-holding for students to proceed step by step in a 5-stage developmental model of e-learning. So, as you see on your screen, this is supporting through structured developmental process. Let us have a look at the diagram or the model which is diagrammatically represented on your screen. The light blue space indicates technical support at each stage, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, and the e-moderation takes place and technical support takes place. As you will gradually see that both e-moderation and technical support is wide and much more in terms of percentage, even if it is quantitatively expressed. More at the beginning stage of access and motivation, in stage 2 online socialization, stage 3 information exchange, stage 4 knowledge construction, and stage 5 final development of the human personality or change in human behavior, what is called learning. Learning as an outcome of change in human behavior. So, at each stage, as you see that e-moderation and technical support, the quantity goes on diminishing and the quality of support scaffolding increases at each stage. Let us now get into details of stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In any online learning program, this cycle I must submit here, this is not a representation of a semester cycle. Any topic that is being taught, any concept that is being taught, which is weekly, which is fortnightly, which is monthly, any topic which is taught, it could be taken as a weekly model, that every week when you teach a topic or any subject, this model could be followed to facilitate most effective student learning online. Let us get into the 5 stages. Stage 1 is access and motivation. The moderator's role is to welcome and encourage participants to interact. Stage 2, next stage, once they settle down, the stage 2 would be online socialization, that they would be familiarizing and providing bridges between cultural, social and learning environments, meaning thereby they would be exchanging among themselves, knowing each other better and knowing each other such that one's own language, attitude and so on and so forth, motivation, emotion are shared and cultural contexts are also shared such that they could settle down each other very well, therefore, they feel more comfortable to proceed further. In stage 3 is basically an information exchange, facilitating tasks and supporting the use of learning materials. So, this is a stage where the students get into their own self-learning, interaction in the groups, exchanging content and exchanging ideas, exchanging views and so on and so forth. So, basically interaction between learner and the content, and the teacher's role would be to facilitate best possible learning from varieties of learning resources that the students go through, that of course, you have designed for that particular concept or particular paper, whatever the case may be. Stage 4 is knowledge construction, that the moderator's role is to facilitate the process of knowledge construction, meaning thereby that, as you already know, that each student is distinct from the other, each student has the ability to proceed and to understand and to appreciate and finally create one's own meaning. So, each student brings in one's own meaning to the context, and knowledge construction starts by expressing one's own meaning, by bringing one's own meaning to the table, as also negotiating meaning in the group through group discussions, debates, seminars and so on and so forth. And the final stage is final development. This is the final learning outcome, supporting and responding, supporting students' learning and also responding to any such periphery to the learning objectives that could exist at the final stage. This is the maturity stage. So, each topic or each concept or each unit that you will be teaching could follow this cycle. This is what Professor Jelly Salmon gave us, one of the finest models available today internationally. Let us get into details of each stage. The stage 1, as you know, is access and motivation. This involves providing individual access and the induction of the participants into online learning environment to participate effectively in online conferencing. So, therefore, the basic idea here is that one must be able to provide explicit motivation to the learners, set pace and rhythm, that the nitty-gritties involved in online, the technological, the pedagogic, the extra pedagogic, the managerial and organizational and assessment strategies. Each one of these would be explained. For instance, you upload what is the weekly schedule, for instance, and what exactly is to be done over this week. And that would be explained to the students. Students would settle down, and of course, it would simply mean that over a semester, for instance, if you have started teaching in the first week of month 1, gradually these socialization would settle down in future, because one has to interact with the same group of peers over a semester, over a year, over maybe 2 years of master's program, for instance. So, therefore, this has to be scattered over a semester, over a year, but each topic has to follow insofar as the stages of moderation is concerned to facilitate effective students' learning. So, set pace and rhythm, facilitate and find ways around online platform. One must study the platform, what exactly, because when the topics change, the design of the online platform might also change. Not necessarily the basic fundamental platform, for instance, it is Moodle or anything else, but certainly the way the content is organized, the activities are built around, and learning resources, audio, video, animation and so on and so forth, graphics, reusable learning objects, they are built around, assessment rubrics or assessment strategies are designed. All these need to change from, may change, they need not change, they may change from topic to topic over a week to the second week, third week, or a fortnight and second fortnight and so on and so forth. So, therefore, one has to familiarize the students and take part in relevant and authentic tasks. So, take part in the sense that one has not started learning, one is simply recognizing what authentic tasks are involved. By authentic tasks, I mean that some of the learning activities which are practically grounded in actual teaching learning environment or actual workplace. So, therefore, as we have said earlier, we have seen earlier also in other programs, that a theoretical understanding or abstract understanding of learning needs to be grounded in context by doing activities in context practically. So, some of the authentic practical activities would facilitate more effective students' learning. So, therefore, that E activity is to make them comfortable. So, the E moderator job is to design such E activities or technology based activities, in a way online learning activities, such that one has to make the students more comfortable. Once this stage 1 settles down, what one gets into stage 2. That stage 2 involves individual participants establishing their online identities and then finding others to whom they interact. So, each individual has an identity. One brings one's own personality or identity, which involve cultural, social, pedagogic, cognitive and so on and so forth, into the platform, and each one has already now known to introduce to each other, and now they are establishing their own identities. So, one is more acquainted with the other person as an individual, as a personality, the learning style, the way one perceives the learning environment, the views and the opinions that one has about that concept, that learning, or generally how teaching learning should take place online. All these things are brought together for the students to interact with each other. They find more comfortable, and each participants to relate to each other and stretch out, that they feel now comfortable with each other, participate in working together. So, therefore, the online activities that could be designed at this stage is about or on sharing of space and how others' work can be related to one's own. These are all not out of the blue. They are all based on the particular topic and the learning objectives which have already been designed, learning resources which are already planned, the way teaching learning would take place are outlined, the assessment rubric is specified, and all these are acquainted to the students, and they finally the such activities that the e-moderator has to design depending on the topics involved, that one finds comfortable to share space with others, each other as students, and they relate to each other's work, because each other might not take up the same assignment to achieve the same learning objective. They might take up different assignments from the assignment alternative basket that is available to achieve the same learning objective. So, while working on that, one gets acquainted that if there are 50 students, for instance, and there are 5 groups of 10 each or 10 groups of 5 each, that when they have to get into small group activities in doing their projects or assignments together, now it is time that they get acquainted with each other's idea, motivation, choice and interest, and decide that which group they would like to get into based on the topic involved, not based on the individuals involved, because each one has to be acquainted with the others. The third stage, as you see on your screen, involves participants engaging in mutual exchange of information. Up to and including stage 3, a form of cooperation occurs whereby each person supports the other participants' goals. Here, actual teaching learning information exchange means the actual teaching learning has already started. Students are engaged in study of the learning resources by themselves or by guided by the teacher pedagogically and with interaction with fellow peers. What is important here is that one must facilitate, as an e-moderator, that one must facilitate how to provide feedback and explain and clarify for deeper understanding. So, providing feedback, so one has to very systematically design such that one is in position to provide. Say, for instance, in a discussion forum, one has to thread it out and provide suggestions to different subtopics that the student, all students may not get engaged in different sub-threads of a particular discussion idea, that some would get engaged in some part of the discussion thread, and some others would get engaged in some other part. By getting engaged, I mean they would feel more actively engaged in that and passively engaged in other threads. So, therefore, the responsibility of the e-moderator is that one has to facilitate, from time to time provide feedback as a formative learning strategy, and also to facilitate for deeper understanding. It would involve whole lot of clarification, whole lot of exchange of views between students, discussing each other, engaging in debates and so on and so forth. The E activities that are listed on the screen that would involve one exploring and coordination with each other while working on one's own activities, group tasks and group debates also possible. So, the individual tasks are designed, individuals choose their own assignments, their own pathways, the way they would like to proceed while conforming to larger design of online learning. They cannot deviate from the formulation that we have done. If they would simply say that we do not like model, we would like something else to proceed, it is simply not possible. All these things are settled in stage 1 and stage 2. At this stage, while actual teaching learning takes place, it is important that activities have to be designed such that they exchange ideas among themselves, get involved in each other's opinion and tasks and pathways, the way others are learning, what exactly they are learning, and while working on activities, both individual as well as group activities, because group tasks and group debates are also designed at this stage. Let us get into stage 4. The stage 4 is an actual stage of knowledge construction. As I said earlier, that knowledge construction would involve two aspects, one as an individual, two as a group. Individual meaning is very important. Each individual perceives the same thing very differently, and therefore, each one was bring one's own understanding and idea to the table and try to put up that this is what does one mean. But while this is expressed vis-a-vis the content and the study, that exchange of ideas and discussion and debates take place along with the teacher or e-facilitator or e-moderator, moderating in between, providing feedback, bringing in higher order learning, bringing in more clarifications, bringing in more examples, bringing in more perspectives to this. Because it is important as teachers basically, and certainly as these moderators, that we bring in varieties of perspectives and examples to the students, because given one perspective and one example, all the students may not understand equally well. The students' learning styles, perception, worldviews are very different, and therefore, their meanings for the same topic interpretations are very different. So, therefore, one has to provide multi perspectives so that the students choose and best understand. So, therefore, it is very important that the e-moderators must have the ability to learn online. So, they must facilitate the students' ability to learn online. They manage their time working with each other. This is a serious engagement with content has already started, and therefore, management of time. This is what is basically called self-regulated learning, that one has to organize one's own inherent abilities, learning abilities such that one has to put in for most effective use, for most effective learning. It might so happen that there are intelligent students who are not able to manage their time and therefore, are not in a position to catch up with the group, and they become laggards and they lag behind, and therefore, they go back to redo in the next semester. This should not happen. All the students must complete successfully their semester. This is what is intended to, and achieve higher order learning. And therefore, the facilitator has also to broaden understanding, provide varieties of perspectives and viewpoints, and give real life examples. I underline real life examples, not theoretical examples, that is fine. But then one has to bring in real life examples such that one gets engaged in real life activities. So, the e-activities or online learning activities would involve on defining group objectives, group outcome, and how to collaborate further. Because online learning is not only about individual learning, because otherwise in offline context one can study and learn. But online learning is all about participation and all about collaboration, that we have seen in the first PowerPoint, that this is all about participation, this is all about collaboration. Because participation and collaboration facilitates better understanding, clearer interpretation, and therefore more learning. Otherwise, one would be confined to one's own perspective and one's own understanding without getting the views of others. And at the end of the day, one's own perspective may be more limited, may be incorrect at times. So, therefore, it is important that we discuss debate along with the teacher. If we go to the stage 5, which is the final stage, the stage 5 is the final stage, which is the final development, in the sense that the students before at the stage 4, they have been able to express their own meaning for each concept that is presented to them. They have also exchanged ideas, debates, undertaken group projects in smaller group situations, in real life context, and therefore, they are now in a position to appreciate best what does it mean, and therefore, how does that concept get applied in the real life context, in work situations, in family, in the community, basically in future work environment. So therefore, at this stage of development, the participants look for more benefits from the system to help them achieve personal goals and reflect on the learning processes. If I define what is written, what you see on your screen, that they look forward to more benefits, because now they have understood, but they will get into appreciating more benefits and what all periphery, other aspects, related aspects are involved in understanding that concept. Therefore, the understanding of their concept would increase, and the application of that concept in real life situation would broaden. So therefore, just like in Bloom's taxonomy, as you have seen, that which involves analysis and synthesis. Analysis would involve providing one context and to analyze different characteristics, principles, ingredients, and so on and so forth to decipher. But when it comes down to synthesis, varieties of situations are provided. One has to find out common threads and so on and so forth. Or given that there is one problem in the context, and how different ways that problem can be addressed. This is precisely what is meant. So the students have already understood. They already appreciate their application because they have applied in context as a project, as an assignment. Now the point is that they would like to know, given that varieties of life context in the community, in the workplace, and so on and so forth, the problem doesn't remain same. The contour of the problem changes, and therefore, from time to time, how to address that problem in different time and space and different contexts. This is what is meant by in stage 5, that the facilitator would be in a position, or the e-teacher would be in a position to provide varieties of extra inputs for extra application or changing application of what is learned in different life situations. One must develop the ability in students to work with the content and defend one's own judgment. This is a stage where the student has reached the final articulation stage, and therefore, the stage of assimilation that becomes part of the cognitive structure. And therefore, next time if you say what do you mean, the student will be able to not only present what does exactly mean, but also defend one's own judgment or one's own argument. This is the highest stage of learning. Further, as you see on your screen, that the metacognitive awareness of one's own pathways, that to what extent that the student is proceeding in one's own pathway. Metacognitive, as we have seen earlier, metacognitive means that the student is aware of one's own ability and how most effectively to use one's own ability for most effective learning. This would also seriously involve self-directed learning as also self-regulated learning, to manage one's own learning effectively and to monitor one's own learning effectively, to be aware of one's own abilities, to manage that ability for most effective learning by oneself, and also to monitor one's own progress. So, to do this, the metacognitive facilitation would involve that whether the student is rightly on one's own pathways and reflect on that and always interact with the student. This is an individual activity. When it comes down to the group, each individual has its own metacognitive style, and therefore, each student would be aware of partly or wholly the metacognitive style of each other peer students, and therefore, the facilitator's role would be much complex at this stage and more difficult and qualitatively enriched, and that such that one is in a position to facilitate not only one individual student alone individually, but also as a group. And this is very important, meaning thereby the e-moderator is conscious of the varieties of metacognitive skills of the group of students. Finally, as you see on the screen, the e-activities, online activities would involve on gaining self-insight, reflecting and making judgments, facilitating students how to reflect and make judgments on one's own experience that has already been gained in the last 1 week's interaction or fortnight interaction and working with the community and so on and so forth. And also e-activities on evaluating and critiquing, that one is in a position to evaluate and critique what one has already learned. And this cycle continues. So, friends, this 5-stage model continues for each concept, each week, each fortnight, each month, each semester, depending on how you have designed. This is an interesting model, and we will look at now what could be the role of the moderator further in 2 or 3 PowerPoints. As you see on your screen, that the e-moderator is to weave and acknowledge the variety of ideas and contributions by each student. because when there are students coming in, there will be varieties of ideas that the students would bring into and they must acknowledge. To refocus discussion and activity when postings are too numerous, this usually happens. Summarize after each 20 messages as a pre-agreed time or at irregular intervals, for example, every 3 days. In a large or busy e-activity, this can be done daily even. To refocus discussion and activity when postings have strayed from the topic. Also, the moderator could refocus and promote activity when e-activities are going on very well. To signal closure of the e-activity from time to time, one activity to the other, the beginning and the end, that has to be done. To provide fresh starting points for broadening and deepening discussion. To remind students of the journey they have traveled from time to time. To reinforce and imprint new information and knowledge, because an advanced organizer has to be provided and a signposting has to be done, and therefore new information is being provided and students very much are conscious of that. To provide a spark for a new activity. But to provide a spark would simply mean that one has to provide an advanced organizer that how the next new e or online activity is going to be, and the students become conscious and get prepared for. So finally conclude, friends, this 5-stage model of Professor Gilly Solomon has been widely used internationally, as I said earlier, and this has been very, very effective. There are 2 works of Professor Gilly Solomon. Finally, this is the final PowerPoint that you see, that Professor Gilly Solomon in 2000 wrote E-Moderating, the Key to Teaching and Learning Online, published by Routledge, Taylor and Francis from London, and in 2002 wrote another book, E-Activities, E-Tivities, the Key to Active Online Learning. It is also published by Routledge, Taylor Francis from London. Please jot down this website. This is Gilly Solomon website, and whatever has been presented in this program is a very brief articulation discussion on the 5-stage model of Professor Gilly Solomon. Please get into this website and Google it, and you will find plenty of other materials, and get into each stage into more detail. Whole lot of detail activities are involved in each stage, and those details would facilitate you to organize your subject teaching, your concept teaching in different disciplines that you are teaching more effectively. I hope this program is useful to you in facilitating students learning online in a more effective way, in a more qualitative way. Thank you very much.